A big storm rolls through town. The next morning, you step outside, you look up, and you see it. Shingles are missing, flipped over, torn. The culprit seems pretty obvious, right? It's got to be the wind. But in the case of your roof versus the wind, the story, well, it's not always that simple. So today, we're going to put on our detective hats and solve the mystery.
I mean, you see damage like this, and your first thought is, wow, that wind must have been absolutely howling. The wind is the prime suspect, right? A powerful force of nature caught red-handed. And look, the wind is definitely involved, but it often has accomplices. And that's the real question we have to ask. Was the wind acting alone, or did it get some help from a pre-existing condition? Maybe a flaw in the roof's design, maybe a botched installation job, or maybe just the slow march of time. That's what we're here to figure out.
To solve this case, we have to start with the science of the crime scene. And our first piece of evidence is this incredibly powerful force called uplift. You might think that wind just pushes down on a roof, but the science actually shows the complete opposite. It pulls up. And as you can see here, it doesn't pull evenly. It creates these intense suction zones, these hot spots you see in red. The corners, the edges, the ridges of the roof, this is almost always where the damage starts.
And this is brilliant. It shows what's happening to every single shingle as wind zips over the edge. It speeds up, creating lower pressure above the shingle while leaving higher pressure underneath it. And that pressure difference, it creates lift. It is the exact same principle that allows a 747 to fly. Your shingle literally becomes a tiny wing that is trying to take off from your roof. And that is when a catastrophic chain reaction kicks in. The second the sealant bond breaks and a shingle lifts, even just a fraction of an inch, it exposes its edge to the wind. That catches more wind, which creates more lift, which exposes it even more. It's this vicious feedback loop of destruction that ends with a shingle getting torn right off.
Okay, so we know how the wind does its dirty work, but why do some roofs fail while others right next door survive the exact same storm? Well, let's investigate the prime suspects in any roof failure.
First up, let's meet the two most common types of asphalt shingles. On the left, you've got your classic 3-tap shingle. It's just one single flat layer. On the right, we have the laminated or architectural shingle. It's a much heavier, 2-piece construction. And believe me, this structural difference is absolutely critical. And this diagram just makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? See those cutouts on the 3-tab? They create 3 individual flaps, and each one is a potential weak point. The laminated shingle, on the other hand, has a solid backer layer. That gives it more weight, more rigidity, and way fewer weak points for the wind to grab onto.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The real-world evidence is overwhelming. After Hurricane Francis slammed into Florida, researchers went out and surveyed the damage. The difference in performance between these two designs was just staggering. This wasn't a small difference, it was a total landslide. And here's the raw data. Just look at this. For 3-tab shingles, it was basically a coin flip. 44% survived okay, but 47%, nearly half, had over 50% of their roof damaged. Now, look at the laminated shingles. 87% came through with little to no damage. The numbers just don't lie. One design is simply tougher.
But shingle design is just one piece of the puzzle. The wind often gets help from these other accomplices. Things like a weak sealant bond, nails in the wrong place, old and brittle materials, or even defects straight from the factory can all conspire to bring a roof down. And this is so important. Installation errors can doom a roof from day one. On the left, that very first row of shingles was never sealed down, making it a super easy target. And on the right, you see a nail that's too high. It's physically holding the shingle up, preventing the sealant from ever even making contact. The wind didn't break this bond. A bond never existed in the first place. Okay, now for what might be the most important part of our whole investigation, learning how to spot the red herrings. These are common roof problems that look a lot like storm damage, but are actually something else entirely. You have probably seen this before. Shingles that are kind of curling up at the edges. It's a condition called cupping or clawing. This is not wind damage. This is simply what happens as asphalt gets old. Over decades, it dries out and it shrinks, and it slowly pulls the corners up into these distorted shapes. It's just Father Time at work. So what about cracks and splits? Again, this is almost never caused by wind. Splitting is an internal failure. It happens when the shingle expands and contracts with daily temperature changes over and over, and the fiberglass mat inside just isn't strong enough to handle the stress anymore. It literally tears itself apart from the inside out. So the key takeaway here is you have to look for clues beyond the obvious. A roof that's truly been damaged by wind will show you shingles that are creased, folded back, or just gone. Cupping, clawing, and splitting, those are signs of long-term problems, and knowing the difference is absolutely critical.
So, we've identified the culprits, we've debunked the myths. Now let's close the case by looking at how to respond to damage the right way, whether you're making a small repair or doing a bigger replacement. If you do have to replace shingles, here are 5 critical rules right from the pros. You have to verify the shingle size. They're not all the same. Be super gentle with the older shingles around the repair area. Inspect the whole slope, not just the one spot. Try to use the same manufacturer. And, if you can, match the color batches so it doesn't look like a checkerboard. Doing it right is all about the details.
But okay, that's for a full-on replacement. What about all those shingles that are just unbonded? You know, the ones that are vulnerable but haven't actually been damaged yet. Is there a way to strengthen them?
Well, some researchers decided to find out. They took some of these unbonded shingles and just applied a few dollops of roofing cement underneath them. Nothing fancy, just about the size of a quarter. They let it cure, and then they performed pull tests to measure exactly how strong that simple repair actually was.
And the result was, well, it was kind of shocking. On average, the strength of the new bond created by those simple little dollops of cement was over 70% stronger than the original factory sealant strip.
Let that sink in for a second. A proactive, simple repair doesn't just restore the bond, it can make your roof significantly more wind-resistant than it was when it was brand new. By finding and sealing those vulnerable shingles, you're not just fixing a problem, you're literally upgrading your roof's defense system.
So, the case is closed. Wind is a powerful force, for sure, but it rarely acts alone. It finds and exploits weaknesses in design, in installation, and in simple old age. But now that you can tell the difference between a recent crime and a pre-existing condition, you can look at any roof with a detective's eye. So go take a look. What's the real story your roof is trying to tell you?